It has been years in the making, but with Ryder Lyons' commitment, the BYU football program has their best commit in program history.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as the host here on this podcast. And as always, once again, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, breaking news. Ryder Lyons officially announcing that he will be a BYU Cougar. What a commitment it is, what a signing it will be for the BYU football program. And as I said in the open of today's show, it is the best commitment in BYU football history, at least in what I consider to be the modern era. And that stretches back probably to the 2000s, early 2000s, when recruiting rankings and the like really came to the forefront. Have there been some pretty elite recruits in BYU football history? Undoubtedly. Look back at the history, especially at the quarterback position for the BYU football program. But if you want to talk about what I consider to be the modern era since 2000, Ryder Lyons is no doubt the best commitment in BYU's history as a program. He is rated a 5-star prospect by 24/7 Sports, the number 4 quarterback overall in the country, 13th overall athlete and prospect in the country, the number 1 prospect out of the state of California with a 98 rating from 24/7 Sports. The composite rating actually rates him higher than that at 99.01, and he's considered to be somewhere in the teens with regards to the overall. He is a consensus top 20 prospect and undoubtedly gives BYU their biggest recruiting win to date on the football side of things. It's not that long ago we were crowing about the fact that BYU brought in the number 1 prospect in college basketball. Now, some recruiting services, speaking of AJ Dybantsa, downgraded him and put Darren Peterson ahead of him. But the bigger point is BYU is on an absolute roll with football and basketball, bringing in top-tier talent. And Ryder Lyons, he is just that. He is the type of guy that you can build a program around. He is the type of guy that BYU hopes in time. Obviously, he's going to serve a 1-year LDS mission is what his plan is. He is going to go out in the mission field when he returns in 2027. All eyes are going to be on Ryder Lyons. And as soon as he's able to take the reins of this BYU offense, the expectations, they're going to be pretty outsized for the BYU football program. There's just no doubt about that. You want to talk about the expectations we've heaped upon AJ Dybantsa? Well, Ryder Lyons is going to carry those same type of expectations. Now, in football, there are a whole lot of extra moving parts because there's 11 guys on your side of the ball when it comes to football versus 4 teammates in basketball. But quarterbacks, they are considered to be the premier position. They have the most influence. They handle the ball on every single play. And the expectation is that a guy like Ryder Lyons, he will take BYU football to places that they have never been before and hope to go to. And that would be college football playoff. That would be national title conversation type stuff. Yes, BYU has a national championship in their history, but that goes back to 1984, well over 40 years ago, when we were relying on polls to announce the national champion. In this day and age, we have a college football playoff. You have to earn it on the field. Now, there are still machinations out there that obviously have precluded programs like BYU for quite literally years from having that opportunity. But Ryder Lyons, he has bought into the vision BYU has for him. He has bought into the offense that Aaron Roderick will be coordinating for him when he arrives on campus in Provo, Utah. And he believes that his best opportunity for success is to play at Brigham Young University. Yes, BYU is a factor in the NIL game. There are reports out there that BYU surpassed what Oregon offered him in NIL. Great. You know what? In this day and age, NIL is just part of the conversation. It's part of everyday life in college football recruiting. But I will always get a kick out of Oregon insiders and other programs who just can't stomach the fact that little old BYU is beating them. Mr. Justin Hopkins from Scoop Duck says this, quote, Oregon has decided to move on and not put any more effort into this. Speaking of recruiting Ryder Lyons, Lanning and staff, speaking of Dan Lanning, Oregon Ducks head coach, Lanning and staff felt like it was best to just part ways, unquote. So he also adds this, it is what it is. Okay, can you guys just get over yourselves, Oregon? You lost, and you lost to BYU. Guess what? It happens. It's recruiting, and BYU is a force. They are absolutely in the conversation for top-tier talent. I had multiple people tell me that if and when the day came that BYU had the power, what was then 5 label attached to their name, now it's the power of 4, it was going to change how BYU competed when it came to recruiting. There were a lot of athletes, and Kalani Sitake said it to the media yesterday. He said that no longer are there, BYU doesn't have this, BYU doesn't have that. Everything that BYU supposedly lacked when they didn't have a Power 4 label attached to their name, they have. They've got boosters who are willing to flash cash and splash it down in NIL deals. They're willing to obviously pay up in revenue share. They are competing favorably in the transfer portal, in the high school recruiting ranks, and programs like Oregon, they can't stomach the fact that BYU may have just straight up beaten them for a top tier prospect, because this is big old bad Oregon that Phil Knight has always been Daddy Warbucks taking care of the Oregon Ducks. You can admit you lost to BYU. There are obviously extra things at play here. Ryder Lyons has got strong family connections to Brigham Young University. He's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's planning on serving a mission. BYU checks every box this young man possibly could have. Did Oregon check those boxes? Yeah, they absolutely had embraced the fact that Ryder was going to serve a mission, etc. But he decided that BYU is where he is going and where he wants to be, and that's to be celebrated. So if you want to stick it in the face of your fellow coworkers, maybe Utah fans, Utah State fans who are going to be a little surly, so be it. Go right on ahead and celebrate, because this is an absolutely marvelous commitment for the BYU football program. It is quite literally the biggest in program history. But now Ryder Lyons has to go out there and prove that a recruiting win can translate into overall wins on the gridiron when he returns from that mission in 2027. And obviously, the hope is that in time, whether that's 2027, 2028, or thereabouts, that he takes the reins of this BYU offense, that he can lead BYU to heights hitherto hoped for from BYU football fans. But the hope is that he will accomplish that in a Cougar uniform. And once again, what a marvelous recruiting win this is for Kalani Sitake. Is undoubtedly the crown jewel of what is turning into an absolutely electric and elite 2026 class. This is going to be, I'll say it right now on the record, if everything holds as it is and BYU continues to pile up talent like they are, this is going to be undoubtedly the best recruiting class in program history. These are the type of recruiting classes that you hope BYU will get routinely going forward, but this is the type of recruiting class that has got pillars that BYU can build their program around that should lead them to Big 12 supremacy, Big 12 title games, hopefully the college football playoff, and maybe in the not too distant future, a chance to win a national championship. This is something that Cougar fans have yearned for quite literally decades, and it's here. It's real, and BYU is showing once again that when they are on a relatively even playing field, there are still some things that are tilted at a disadvantage, it feels like, for BYU, but when things are more even than they have been at any point before now, with BYU being members of the Big 12 Conference, they are showing they compete very, very favorably when it comes to recruiting, and they can outright win top-tier recruiting battles that just seemed like they were a far-fetched idea 3 or 4 years ago. It just felt like that was never going to be BYU's lot in life, and here we are. Ryder Lyons, welcome to BYU. Congratulations on your commitment, and best of luck as you move forward now as one of the faces of the BYU football program, even though you will not be enrolling until 2027. At least the last expectations were that he would serve that mission and then enroll at BYU at that point. But he is a face of the program. There's zero doubt about that. And now he's got to match up to the expectations, the hype train, everything that is involved with it. And BYU is the beneficiary with their best commitment in program history. We'll have more on this on our full edition of the podcast coming up tomorrow. More reaction, what we're hearing, etc. We'll have that for you guys. And as always, thank you truthfully for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And once again, as I say often, thank you for being an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.